Well, look, I think that, without getting into geopolitics, which is definitely not my line of expertise, but there's no question agriculturally, from my perspective, globally, it is without question black gold. These lands are invaluable, basically, because it's not only about the land, it's about the frequency of rainfall, which means you mitigate the risk in relation to droughts, and you get very high yields continuously over a long period of time. Since the 15 or 17 years that I've been involved in my company, we've only had one dry period, which was 2 years ago, and that was the driest in 136 years. So really, frankly, it is an enormous asset. But on the geopolitical side, you'll have to ask the experts.
I will indeed, but you've answered my question fully and kind of pretty much said what I expected, but I think it's stunning nonetheless. John, what are the ramifications? I take on board your first answer where 95% of your land is being tilled and can be sown at the moment as well, less so for the smaller farmers. But what are the ramifications if the logistics of getting that produce off the land onto the global market are disrupted or perhaps even halted this year? Just paint the picture for us.
Okay, well, look, presently in Ukraine, as you're well aware, the port infrastructure's been literally destroyed as we speak. I saw one of Bunge's facilities yesterday, which was laid in ruin. So obviously we have a long way to go as far as ports are concerned. Look, the only way to get grain out of the country, frankly, is by rail and, at the worst case scenario, truck, while we have a port blockade. In storage, of course, you've got to remember that we just harvested 80 million tonnes, so a lot of our storages are full. In MHP's case, we're a little bit different because we tend to store all our crops over a year because we're the sixth largest poultry exporter globally, and we produce 50% of the total poultry for Ukraine. Now we're producing 90 to 100%. So we have storage capacities, and we have oil crushing plants, 3 of them, in fact. The issue there is that we need to export the oil by rail. Much easier to do, I might add. So on oil crushing, we see light in the tunnel for exports, as long as we maintain the status quo. In relation to grain exports, much more problematic, particularly wheat, which is what we produce between 2.5 to 3 million tonnes of grains per year. So we are important not only for Ukraine, but also for global export markets. Getting the wheat out is going to be problematic. It's not impossible, frankly, but we all learn to adapt in these sorts of situations, but it'll be difficult.
John, here's a difficult question, and it's a hypothetical question, but I hope you give me an answer for this one as well. If Russia occupies the agricultural land of Ukraine, will you deal with Russia? Will you work with Russia in order to avert some form of global famine crisis, or actually will you pull out and not work with the Russians?
Look, I think, frankly, that if the Russians took over Ukraine, and it would be a war of attrition. You cannot believe the patriotism of our people on the ground. So there won't be much left. It'll be a moot point, frankly. I mean, you have already seen what Russian forces have done in the east. As the minister has described, they have just literally destroyed all the equipment, burnt all the fuel, destroyed the crops. So it's a scorched earth policy. So really, if we go down that line, there won't be much left to really talk about, frankly.